A couple of big announcements before Bristol has locked in another 2 NASCAR Cup Series drivers for 2024 and has closed the door on a few more excellent Cup rides, but there's still a few left to be signed for 2024. Let's break it all down today on Shifting Gears. I'm Alan Bailey, and before this video becomes obsolete with more breaking news, make sure that you mash the subscribe button so that you come on back for the update on the 2024 NASCAR silly season in about 30 days, give or take. And make sure that you stay logged on to AmericanRacingNetwork.com for the latest motorsports news. ARN, the Motorsports Authority. A lot happened heading into the weekend at Bristol. A lot of announcements happened, and yeah, some interesting movements happened, and a couple of more things became more clear for the 2024 season. So let's go ahead and recap what will change for the 2024 season that has already been signed, that is set in stone. Firstly, Josh Berry to the 4-car, replacing the retiring Kevin Harvick. We knew this was coming for a while. It was announced a while ago, and like we said in previous videos, Stewart-Haas Racing as a whole and Berry will have an uphill battle to make that team more competitive, but that organization should be able to rise to the occasion. It's just going to take some time and a lot of hard work. Corey LaJoie is part of the Spire Motorsports plan. He was the first driver to be signed by them. He signed a 2-year extension with them. He will be back for at least the next 2 years. This guy helped to build this team. They are building the team around him. He is definitely the leader for all intents and purposes over at Spire, and we do expect him to be in that 7-car for the long term. Martin Truex Jr. also signed a 1-year extension. He's essentially year to year deciding when he wants to retire. Again, we don't know if next year will be his last year. We can speculate and we'll ask that question for probably years to come, but he's your 2023 regular season champ and he continues to compete for victories on Sunday, so I don't see why he would hang it up. We also found out from the man himself, Harrison Burton, that he will be back in the number 21 for the Wood Brothers in 2024. He just got a new crew chief, and he tweeted out that he's excited to build on this season for next season with this team, and excited to be back next season. I expect them to have a slight improvement next season, but honestly, Ford as a whole needs to improve, so we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of the Fords, Michael McDowell and Todd Gilliland back in the 34 and the 38 respectively. Honestly, these two belong here. I do think that they're building on something. We saw some massive improvements this season with Michael McDowell winning at Indianapolis, and I do think that Gilliland is doing a lot with a little with that race team, and now with them making the postseason and them getting more resources and more financial support from their winnings this season, I do expect this organization to start being a little bit more competitive next year. We also found out over the weekend that Daniel Hamrick is going to be taking over the number 31 for Colleague Racing. Honestly, this was not a sexy, flashy signing, admittingly, but it makes a lot of sense. Hamrick does have 1 season in the Cup Series, not in the next gen, but in the 2019 Cup car, and I do think he's a safe bet. He's definitely a driver who has matured in the Xfinity Series a little bit, and I do think he has something to prove coming back into Cup. I don't know about Colleague, though. Their Cup Series program has been struggling, and so has the Xfinity program. They're definitely rebuilding right now. They're trying to find something for 2024. I think that Hamrick is kind of that safe bet, but ultimately will be good for the team in the long run as long as he can keep that car competitive. We'll have to wait and see in 2024. Also found out that Legacy has officially signed John Hunter Nemechek to take over the 42 Toyota in 2024. This was a kind of a pressure move from Toyota. Noah was stepping out of this car, and there were rumors that Noah was getting out of the car and Nemechek was getting in before everything on social media with Noah happened. So it's not really a surprise. I do think that John Hunter does deserve this Cup ride. I do think he's going to do a lot of good things with it. I'm interested to see how much resources Toyota is going to give to Legacy compared to Gibbs and 2311 next year. Is it going to be even across the board like it should be, or is 2311 Joe Gibbs going to get more resources than Legacy? We'll have to wait and see. An announcement that came a while back is that Justin Haley is going to be heading over to Ware Racing, leaving that 31, heading to presumably the 51. He is the flagship driver over at Ware. That 51 is the flagship car over at Ware, and with a technical alliance with RFK, this organization has been improving, has been trending in the right direction. I'm not saying they're going to be playoff threats by any stretch of the imagination, but I do expect them to run top 20 and be on the outskirts of the playoffs next season. the big announcement that happened at Bristol is that Zane Smith has signed a multi-year contract with Trackhouse Racing, but will not be racing in the Cup Series for Trackhouse. No. Instead, he's going to be racing a third Spire Motorsports Chevy in the Cup Series in 2024 full-time, essentially out on loan from Trackhouse to Spire. To be perfectly clear, this third car is a Spire car. It's prepared in-house by Spire. Spire owns the charter that they purchased from Live Fast Motorsports for reportedly around $40 million, and they will be preparing, running that car, and staffing that car. Essentially, Zane Smith is just on loan from Trackhouse as a driver, with Trackhouse picking up the bill for Zane Smith, but Spire 100% fielding the car and everything else. What sponsorship will look like, what the car number will look like, we don't know. We're hearing that Zane Smith could be running the 71 next season for Spire in that third Spire car, but again, nothing is official. We'll have to continue to wait and see. He could also run the 70. Again, we'll wait for them to sign some sponsors and to formally announce that somewhere down the road. Another announcement that happened this week is that Shane Van Gisbergen has signed a driver development contract with Trackhouse with multi-years on that contract. Now, what does this mean? He's not going to be racing in the Cup Series full-time in 2024. That's off the table because they are doing this the right way. They're putting Shane or SVG in some truck races, Xfinity races, some Cup races, but also grassroots stuff, dirt stuff, late models. They're getting him essentially that driver's seat time and that development that he needs to get ready for the Cup Series eventually. Whether that's in 25 or 26, we don't know. We're hearing that he's going to be racing the 91 part-time in the Cup Series, about 5 to 10 starts depending on sponsorship, but primarily he's going to be racing in a number of different series. They're still working out the details. Presumably they're going to be teaming up with Spire for SVG to run maybe the full Truck Series season, maybe some Xfinity starts. We're going to have to wait and see how sponsorship plays out. The big holdup with his schedule for 2024 is the fact that NASCAR hasn't announced the 2024 season yet. That's the holdup on what his 2024 plans will look like. We should hear from that camp within the next week or two as to what his 2024 schedule looks like. Now time for the big unknowns. The number 10, Aric Almirola. A lot of interesting speculation here. Almirola may or may not return. We're hearing that more likely than not, he will not be back in the Cup Series next year, with Smithfield leaving the sport altogether, reportedly, at the end of this season. Again, these are unconfirmed reports. No deal is signed with Almirola, Smithfield, or Stewart-Haas Racing, so we're kind of waiting and seeing. What becomes of the 10 car? Honestly, we're not 100% sure. Zane Smith was the leading candidate to take over this 10 car. Obviously, that's not happening anymore. Cole Custer could essentially jump back up into the Cup Series in that 10 car, but sponsorship is an issue. So this charter could essentially be a free agent. I do see them running 4 cars over at Stewart-Haas Racing. I just don't know who's going to be in that 4th car, and I don't think anybody at Stewart-Haas knows. They're still kind of scrambling and talking to a few drivers and talking to Aric and trying to figure things out, but Aric very much looks like he's on his way out. Speaking of on his way out, we know that AJ Almendinger more than likely will not be back in the 16 Cup car next season. AJ is a massive colic diehard driver. He's not going anywhere. We're hearing that AJ Almendinger reportedly wanted to jump back down to the Xfinity Series, just simply wasn't having fun in Cup, wants to go down to the Xfinity Series, have more fun, compete for more race wins and a championship in the Xfinity Series. It's the right move for AJ, plain and simple. But what becomes of that 16 car, that second colic car in the Cup Series? Hearing that it's between 2 drivers at the moment, hearing that it's between Noah Gragson and Ty Dillon, with basically whoever brings the most money to the table getting that seat. And honestly, more than likely Noah is winning that category right now. He did have some sponsors that were signed on to him. None of those sponsors have come out publicly against or for him, which tells me that they're still negotiating for next season. Ty Dillon has a couple of sponsors, but nothing substantial like Noah had before his social media incident earlier this year. He was reinstated by NASCAR not too long ago, and that was kind of the final key that needed to happen for Noah to really go out and talk to sponsors. He is racing racing some late model races here and there and getting back in the seat and getting his, I guess, feet wet more or less. It's going to be interesting to see where Noah Gragson lands in 2024. I think he's going to land at Kaulig because he did race for Kaulig, oh, by the way, in the Cup Series part-time not too long ago. And from what we hear, he had a good time, was really impressed with the organization. Plus, Noah has the ability to run some Xfinity races with Kaulig if he ends up signing with them in the Cup Series. The 16 could also go part-time between a handful of drivers, similar to what it did before AJ took over that car full-time, with maybe AJ, Noah, and Ty Dillon splitting that car, kind of like we saw earlier in that 16's existence. But I do think that they're going to lean towards signing Noah Gragson. Again, sponsorship dollars, and the contract just simply needs to be signed at this point. Speaking of a contract that needs to be signed, Carson Hocevar probably going to be in that 77 car for Spire. We haven't heard anything official yet. They are still dotting their I's, crossing their T's with that contract. An announcement should be forthcoming sometime in the next couple of weeks, but again, waiting for that contract to be signed. Another big unknown in the Cup Series is the number 15 Ware Racing Ford for next season. Again, this organization is kind of building and kind of going through a new brand identity as they're signing Justin Haley to take over presumably the 51, but the second car has always been that rotation of a different driver every week, a play to race type driver that just simply brings sponsorship in for that singular race and then moves on. And I think that Ware is trying to move away from that model. They're trying to get a single driver in that second Ware Ford for 2024 so that both cars can compete for the championship full time. At least I hope that's what they're doing. I think that's the next logical step. But the question is who signs on at Ware to be Justin Haley's teammate in 2024? We're not hearing anything at all. This honestly might just be a pay-to-race type car for 2024. We'll have to wait and see. The other kind of unfortunate news that came out of Bristol is the fact that the 78 of Live Fast Racing is now going part-time. But hey, don't feel too bad about them. They were the car that frankly was struggling to just stay on the lead lap most weeks. And I do think that them moving to a part-time schedule is going to be better for them. This season, there was a rotation of drivers in that car just simply to keep the doors open. And they announced that they have sold their charter to Spire. They didn't announce and disclose the actual financial numbers of it, but we're hearing it was in the ballpark of $40 million. And hearing that 78 car essentially is going to continue to do what it did this season with a number of different drivers in the car. Ty Dillon could end up at this car part-time if he doesn't land somewhere else. We're going to have to wait and see on this one, honestly. But I want to hear from you. What do you think of the 2024 NASCAR Silly Season update here in mid-September 2023? Let me know down in the comments below. Who do you think is going to be in the 10 car? Who do you think is going to be in the 16 car? Where is Noah Gragson going to race? Where is Ty Dillon going to race? Let me know in the comments down below right now. And while you're there, make sure that you mash the subscribe button so that you do not miss an update on this video coming out around the middle of the month next month in October. You're definitely going to want to come back for that one, and make sure that you stay logged on to AmericanRacingNetwork.com for the latest motorsports news. ARN, the Motorsports Authority. Thank you so much for watching. For Shifting Gears, I'm Alan Bailey. We'll see you at the track.